we're going to do question 6, and this is on acid, alkali, and salt preparation. This is essentially very, very unique to paper 2. So 14 marks here. What do you expect, right? Okay, let's go. We're going to dive into this. It's going to take a while here, okay? So we have a scientist doing all of this, and you got an equation. And one thing I want you to take note of the equation is you see this S state symbol next to lead bromide. That basically tells us that this lead bromide is an insoluble salt. And with that tiny, tiny clue, they expect you to obtain a pure dry sample of lead bromide from the reaction mixture. It's going to be an easy one because it's 3 marks, right? If you have already taken and appreciate the hint that this is an insoluble salt, there's nothing much you can do except to filter. That's one. Because what happened here is once you form the insoluble salt and you filter out, your lead bromide will be here as a residue, right? So you want to, this basically will be the residue, and you want to wash the precipitate with distilled water, and you want to dry between 2 sheets of filter paper or in warm oven, not hot but warm. Okay, so that's how you get your 3 marks. Why are some students not scoring this? Is because they think they need to do the heat up to crystallize and then filter and stuff like that. Okay, so I've got another question here. This is usually a 5-mark question. I'm going to try to recall, I think 2024 November paper, there's a question like that. It says a 5 marks, okay? How do you obtain S.P.A salt, for example? S.P.A salts can be things like sodium nitrate or like potassium nitrate, any of the S.P.A salts from known volume of acid and alkali. So usually this kind of question follows after a titration questions. And in this case, are you able to tell me what's the acid I need to have here or the alkali I need to have here? The acid I need to have here is actually nitric acid. Alkali is sodium hydroxide. Okay, so if it's a 5-mark question and they tell you that they have conducted titration, they have like gotten certain volume, like maybe 23 cm cube over here. Sorry, I need to be as precise as I can. Okay, and then because we are definitely using burette and pipette, so we need to have the standard decimal point over here. If these volumes are given to you and the titration is completed, then how do you prepare or obtain pure and dry salt? 5 marks here. Okay, so what you want to do here is you want to repeat with the same volume of acid. If the acid is given and the alkali is given, be precise about it. And this time around, you want to make sure there is no indicator, because the indicator will make the salt impure. Okay, so you want to repeat without indicator with the same volume of the acid and alkali. That's your first mark. However, if you went straight in and say heat this solution to dryness, you will only get a maximum of 1 mark. Okay, you do not want to heat to dryness because you won't get hydrated salt. What you will get is anhydrous salt, so no marks thereafter. Okay, so then you still need to heat, but you want to heat until a saturated solution is formed, or some students prefer heat until crystals starts to form. That's also another way to get your 2nd mark. And then number 3 is once you have your saturated solution, you want to leave the saturated solution to cool so that it will start to crystallize. That's usually a few days. And then you want to filter to obtain the crystal. So what's happening here after a few days is you get your crystals, but you still have a little bit of the filtrate at the base of it. So you want to filter to just obtain the crystals. So that's step number 4. And because they do ask you for dry salt at the end of the day, okay, if you want to put wash, in the past I always put like wash and dry together, but this time around they did mention that washing have no marks, but I still personally like to wash it with distilled water, and then I dry the crystals in warm oven or between 2 filter paper. Okay, one thing I find it really interesting is if you don't mention the word crystal, you will actually lose 1 mark between M3 to M5. So you need to be clear that you are dealing with the crystal of the S.P.A salts, and you need to mention and put the word crystals at least once. Okay, so leave to cool to crystallize, or filter to obtain crystals, dry the crystals in warm oven at least 1 time with the word crystals to make sure you get your marks here. Okay, so that's 5 marks here. I think the reason why I want to talk about this 2024, I think November paper question is because I find these marks seem really, really weird. Or rather, they are very particular. Like things like this, I've never seen it before. So take note of this. Washing and drying tend to be together 1 mark, but this time around they say no marks for washing if you just mention it on its own. So I find it really odd. So I really wanted to talk about it for a short while. Okay, so hopefully this bring your attention to what you should be writing.